Welcome into the final episode of the semester on Plead Your Case.
Very strong, and they really have been hot as late. But I think the Lions are due to bounce back here.
But they won out stuff, and they had the higher percentage of opponents. They had the higher win percentage of opponents, and they did earn the spot, truthfully.
I have two very important words to say to start this off. Absolutely pathetic.
Welcome into Plead Your Case, Waynesburg Community Television's national sports debate show, now expanding outside the realm of the Power 4 sports. All our panelists will expand into the depths of professional sports while speaking on the newest sports topics each week. We're also bringing new mini-segments like I Got Something to Say, State of the Union, Pick 'em Pools, while even bringing back a popular mini-segment, the 5 and 5. Here at PYC, we plan to create debates, create memories, and the best takes possible for you, the viewer. No one is safe. Every opinion, every angle will be challenged and discussed to further detail. So sit back, relax. It's now time to plead your case.
And we're back for the first segment and the final episode of the semester of Plead Your Case. I'm your host, Anthony DiFillippo, joined by Luke Andruscik and Michael McKenzie. College football too high, too low, or just right? This is according to the most recent Associated Press Top 25 poll. Michael, we'll start with you. We're doing Texas A&M first. They're ranked at 7 right now.
I think that's right about just right, that range. Maybe you bump them up to 6, a spot ahead of Ole Miss, because I think that they've got a better win. It came earlier in the season at Notre Dame. You got to give credit for scheduling out of conference games and going and winning those. Even if you play them close, you got to get credit for that. But that key win against Notre Dame, really the only big standout on Texas A&M's resume. They did not play a tough SEC schedule. Actually played the easiest SEC conference schedule. And at the end of the season, a chance to pick up a signature win at Texas, rivalry matchup, and they drop a dud in the game. Marcel Reed, a couple of late interceptions. The defense let Texas do whatever they wanted in that second half. I think 7 or 6 is just about right for them, not much higher. They're going to get a home playoff game. They had a really good season, one of the best in program history. But I don't think that they're going to get a bye, especially with how they ended the season. They're not peaking at the right time. You also got to look at that South Carolina game, a 30-3 deficit at halftime. They needed a miracle comeback and really an absolute dud of a performance in the second half from South Carolina to win that game.
Mike, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I know A&M's schedule was weak, as you just said. They had the weakest SEC schedule. But I think you can put them ahead of Texas Tech and Ole Miss. I mean, I know they had a hard schedule and they lost one of their few big games, which was against Texas this past week. But they're 11-1 in the SEC. I think that's more impressive than a 11-1 in the Big 12. I know they played BYU. I know they played Utah. But I think you put Texas. I think the Texas A&M is just a better team. They have wins over that Notre Dame. I know it's an early game. They have Missouri and LSU as well. Missouri is ranked in the AP poll right now, so that's another ranked win for them. I understand what you're saying, but I think Texas A&M is just the better team over Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
We're not going to talk about Texas Tech at great length here, but I think they not only won their Big 12 schedule, which I get it, it's weak. That's a weak conference in the Big 12 compared to the SEC. They dominated that schedule. They didn't really have a close game other than their one loss against Arizona State, which another dud performance, but that came much earlier in the season than A&M's dud at Texas. I think if you watch Texas Tech on the field, that has to be worth a little bit of something. Because if we go straight results on the field and you're giving the SEC all this credit, then we're going to have a straight field of SEC teams and a little bit of sprinkled Big Ten in there. You have to watch what the teams do on the field. And when you watch Texas Tech, especially that defense, that's one of the best teams in the country.
A&M's lone blemish, of course, Mike talked about it and Luke did a little bit too, to Texas, and that's the team we're going to next. Luke, we'll start with you. Texas ranked 14 right now. Too high, too low, just right.
Well, Texas is 9-3 right now. They have the one-score loss to Ohio State, 14-7 in Week 1, which is still impressive, that loss in Week 1. They have wins over Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M, all ranked ahead of them. The two other losses that they had came against the number 3 team in the what I think is the number 3 team in the country, Georgia, and a pretty embarrassing loss to Florida, although that was earlier on in the season. I think with the wins over 3 teams ahead of them, they should at least be ahead of Vandy, Miami, and BYU.
I think they're just right. Because if you go back and look at the 4-team playoff era, that loss to Florida ends your season.
I agree.
I get that we're in a 12-team era. But in the 12-team era, you get chances to redeem yourself from that Florida loss. They had a chance against Georgia, and they failed miserably in that game. They played terribly. between the hedges. That early season, opening season, out-of-conference game against Ohio State, again, credit for going out of conference, scheduling a tough game. But they didn't play particularly well. I get that Sarkisian's going to tell you they outgained Ohio State in that game, which they technically did, and it was a 7-point game. But you go back and watch that game, it didn't feel like a 7-point win for Ohio State. It felt like a 20-point win for Ohio State. And I know both of us watched that game from the perspective of an Ohio State fan. But you got to get multiple big-time signature wins to make up for the Florida loss. They got it with Texas A&M. I'm not sure they got a big enough win to still remove the big-time blemish from that Florida
Let me
loss.
take back what I said. I did say that Vandy, I think you put them in over, I know all of them have better records. I know they all have better records than Texas at 9-3, but the wins from Texas, I think, are very impressive and bump them ahead of teams like Vanderbilt, who really teams like BYU, like the Big 12. I hate people who are hypothetical with the SEC and the Big 10 stuff, but Big 12 compared to SEC just schedules, I think, are completely different. And the Texas's wins, I think, push them over some of these teams.
We do have to move on. Okay. I'm going to cut you off real quickly there, Mike. Alabama, this is the next team. Too high, too low, just right, Mike? You have the floor.
This one's so tough to me because that Oklahoma loss at home, a lot of people want to say is bad. I think Oklahoma's a much better team than people give them credit for. But that Florida State loss to open up the season is one of the worst losses of any team that's going to be in the field. They're in the field. They're going to make the playoff. I'm going to say just right. I'm not going to put them ahead of anybody else that's ahead of them. It's a 10-2 team with a really bad loss to Florida State. And there's no all right, good losses. But it's not as bad of a loss to Oklahoma, a team that I think is peaking at the right time. I know that they had a bad outing against LSU. I think that's more of an outlier game than anything compared to what they did in the month of November. I'm going to go just right with where Alabama is in the AP poll. You know, they're in a spot where they've got to win the SEC championship to get a home game, but they're not going to drop out of the field if they lose the SEC championship to Georgia unless they lose the game by 30, which isn't going to happen.
I think we're actually going to agree here for the first time. I said if we're actually talking about who we think the better teams are, I think you can say Alabama is more talented than a couple of these teams ahead of them, and I think they have a better chance at winning some games in the college football playoff. But like you said, Mike, the teams ahead of them, like let's say Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, I don't think you can put any of those guys. I don't think you can put Alabama in front of any of those guys, and I don't think you can bump any of the people behind Alabama in front of them. So I think right where they are at number 10 right now is fine. And that's where I actually think they're probably going to be in the college football playoff ranking tonight, right there around 10. And it really depends on, it obviously depends on the SEC championship, whether they get it.
I think it more so depends on the Big 12 championship game if you think about it, because we're not going to talk about these two teams.
That's true, if BYU
But if BYU
wins, Texas Tech will be
them,
in.
that's an auto bid.
Yeah.
That's going to slide them out of the playoffs. So it is important tonight whether Notre Dame or Alabama is ranked higher. That's going to be something fun to watch.
This is a team that's right on the cusp of the AP Top 25 poll, and the coaches poll they're in. Vanderbilt, they're ranked 13th right now. Luke, we'll start with you. Too high, too low, just right.
Well, Vanderbilt, it's so hard to get a take on Vanderbilt because of their historically just not being one of the worst teams, one of the bottom feeders in the SEC. We're sitting here on a Tuesday. The number one recruit in the country just flipped his recruitment from Georgia to Vanderbilt. He's a 5-star quarterback, Jared Curtis. That's exciting for them. But I think Vandy has better wins than BYU. And I think Miami's losses to SMU and Louisville really don't give me confidence in them as a playoff team. I also don't think Vandy makes the playoffs, but Vandy does have wins over LSU, Mizzou, and Tennessee. I think they're pretty good right where they're at. I can't put them ahead of Miami or BYU just because I think they have better. What do you think, Mike?
I'm bumping them up. I know Miami's got the better win. Mm-hmm. I'm bumping Vanderbilt up because you look at Miami's losses. I know I'm going to mention Miami in a little bit, and I think they might. I don't know if they should be above Miami. I'm putting Vanderbilt ahead of BYU. I'm putting Vanderbilt at number 12 or number 11 right now. I might put Vanderbilt, and I know that this is a stretch considering where Vanderbilt is and where Notre Dame is. I'm putting Vanderbilt ahead of Notre Dame.
Oh.
I am putting Vanderbilt ahead of Notre Dame. And that's more so a testament to how far I dropped Notre Dame from the 9 spot, which we may get into in a little bit. But Vanderbilt handled business. They played an LSU team who was still a very valuable win when they played them. They still had Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, and all of their playoff aspirations ahead of them. They had game day. Go to Tuscaloosa for Vanderbilt coming into town. And 3.5 quarters of that game were a 1-score game, and Vanderbilt was in it the entire time. I think Vanderbilt's got multiple key SEC wins, especially the most recent one against Tennessee, where they ran for 300 yards on the road against their rival on senior night against a group of Tennessee players who arguably had the most successful run this millennium in Tennessee football. They kicked it off with that win against Alabama in 22, beat Alabama again and made the playoff last season in 24. That was a good group of seniors that just ended their careers at Tennessee with a demolition by Vanderbilt on the road. I think Vanderbilt's too low. It's a little bit of a testament to the fact that it's the Vanderbilt logo on that resume and not the Michigan logo and not the Ohio State logo or any of those other big powerhouse teams. But it's also because I think a few teams ahead of them are getting a little too much love, specifically I think BYU and Notre Dame.
It's a common theme right now to talk about some of those teams that are on the cusp. We're going to go down to number 16, Virginia, out of the ACC. Mike, we'll start with you too high, too low, just right.
I think they're all right there. They don't have very many signature wins. They didn't play a tough out-of-conference schedule. One of their out-of-conference losses, their only out-of-conference loss, was to NC State, a team in the ACC. Don't ask me how it works, but that's just how it works. They're in the ACC championship game. No matter if you think they're 2 spots too low, 2 spots too high, they're still going to need to win the ACC championship to get into the playoffs. So I don't think Virginia warrants too much consideration into where they're ranked. No. It's just they handle business this weekend, they're in. They don't, they're out. Simple as that.
Luke? Yeah, Virginia's matchup, where they rank right now really does not matter at all. They just need to win this ACC championship game. As Mike said, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they're not going to make it. Just like Vanderbilt, I think they're right on the cusp. We were just talking about Vanderbilt. I know, but now we're on Virginia. I think Virginia is good where they're at the 16 spot, excuse me. The only thing I would do is maybe move them above Utah just because they're playing for a conference championship game.
Yeah, Utah's 15.
Even though Utah's been playing, there's not
Yeah.
really much of a difference, but if there was a thing, that's what I'd do.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. We do have more college football action later, along with 3 more mini segments. So stay tuned to the final episode here on Plead Your Case.
Welcome back to today's episode of Plead Your Case. I'm Benicio DeFalco, and I'm in between 2 roommates. To my right, Tyler Aaron, and to my left, Brett Gombita. It's time for our NFL Pick'em segment. For those of you that don't know, we'll have 5 games to select from. They'll have 30 seconds to plead their case and who they think they're going to win and give a quick reason why. Starting things off with the red-hot Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Both these teams played on Thanksgiving. This game will be going on Thursday, so both teams will be given a full week to prepare. We'll start with you, Brett. Who do you like in this one?
You said it, Benny. They've been playing red hot lately. The Dallas Cowboys have beat both teams in the previous Super Bowl in their last 2 games, and I think that they keep the ball rolling in this one. And it'll be a shootout, but if that Dallas defense can force a turnover or 2, I think they can walk out on top.
Yeah, Dallas's offense is very strong. Javonte Williams, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. It's very strong, and they really have been hot as late. But I think the Lions are due to bounce back here at some point. I know they've been struggling lately. 7-5, they're right now out of the NFC playoff picture at the number 8 seed. I do think they will bounce back here against Dallas and pick up the win.
Continuing things on, we have the 1 o'clock slate. This game will be going on with the Cincinnati Bengals, who just got Joe Burrow, and the Buffalo Bills, who just dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving things on to you, Tyler. Who do you like in this one?
Ooh, so Buffalo got the big win. Bengals did too. Joe Burrow's back in the lineup. You know, you like to see that for Cincinnati. I really do think Cincinnati's on the up now. But they're playing an 8-4 Bills team that's currently at the bottom of the playoff picture. They're going to continue fighting their way to that top spot in the AFC East. It's a 2.5 game cushion between New England and Buffalo right now. I'm going to take Buffalo here.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Buffalo Bills in this one. They had an elite running game in Pittsburgh. They went into Pittsburgh and ran for the most yards in the city since 1975, and Josh Allen hasn't even been playing his best lately. He's given himself room to improve, and I think he does that this week against Cincinnati.
Next up, we have an AFC North matchup between two 6-6 teams. This game will be for the first place in the AFC North division. You guys are both wearing Steelers jerseys. Of course, this game will be going on between the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers. Back to you, Brett.
This Steelers team looks lost. The Ravens have too in the last couple weeks. To be fair, Lamar Jackson's on the first 3-game stretch of his career where he hasn't thrown a touchdown. But I think they get back in the win column against the Pittsburgh Steelers, as the Ravens overall are a more complete team and they're able to make in-game adjustments. So give me Baltimore.
Yeah, well, for me, both teams really consistent with their play. Although this game is in Baltimore, I think that does factor a lot. I know Lamar Jackson doesn't really play well against the Steelers. I agree with you, Brett. They're a more complete team. The Steelers' defense is in shambles. They just cut Darius Slay moments ago and signed Adam Thielen, or picked him up off of waivers. But I really don't think that's going to help the Steelers' offense as much or the defense at all. So, yeah, give me Baltimore here.
Moving things on to the 4:25 game on Sunday, we have an NFC North matchup between the first place Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Back to you, Tyler. Who's your winner?
I think this is going to be the highlight game of the Week 14 slate. I really do. I mean, these are two teams at the top of the NFC battling it out. I'm going to go Packers here solely because it's at Lambeau Field. I think that there's more of a home field advantage there for Green Bay. Plus, they've struggled a little bit lately. They haven't been playing up to their potential. So I really think Green Bay will bounce back. And I know the Bears team, it's young. I do think they're going to fall off a little bit here.
I think this will be the most fierce defensive unit that Caleb Williams has seen yet in his young career. But he's proved week after week that he can be that guy. And in my opinion, I think he's already the greatest quarterback in Bears history. You guys can, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I'm going to take Chicago in a very low-scoring game here. I think defense prevails in this one, and the Bears' defense has been forcing turnovers at a really good rate, and I'm going to take Chicago.
And ending things off with a Sunday night game, we have the Houston Texans, who have won 4 straight, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Brett, cap things off for us.
I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. History is on their side. They've won the last 5 straight matchups over the Houston Texans, and although the Texans have won 4 straight games, some of it which were with Davis Mills, I think the Chiefs just need this one too much, and they pretty much need to win out from here. And I think Kansas City is going to be able to flip that switch and get into that mode. So I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Houston doesn't really do it for me. I mean, I've watched them play a couple times. They're just not it, at least in my opinion. I know they have the winning streak right now. I just think there's so much inconsistency on both sides of the ball for the Texans. I know there's a 4-game winning streak there, but the Kansas City Chiefs, 6-6 right now. They're the 10 seed right now in the AFC. You can't count out the Chiefs in any way, shape, or form here. I mean, they've been a dynasty for so long, so I'll say the Chiefs.
That's going to wrap up today's Pick'em segment, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, 5 and 5 is back. Today's theme, college football, so make sure to stay tuned.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I'm Mia Hinkins, and welcome to Buell Hall, home of Waynesburg University's Department of Communication. If you visit our campus, you'll have the opportunity to attend some comm classes, enjoy lunch with our students, and watch us in action. We hope to see you here soon at Waynesburg University.
To schedule your personal visit, go to waynesburg.edu/admissions/schedule-visit. Come grow with us at Waynesburg University.
Welcome back into Plead Your Case for this next 5 and 5 mini segment. I'm your host, Chase Maceiko, alongside Richie Dininni to my right and Cade Henderson to my left. Welcome in, boys. And we're going to be moving to Richie first. We did a little rock, paper, scissors to figure out who's going to go first. So first question goes to Richie, and it's, should Duke be competing in the ACC championship game this weekend?
I would say they definitely should be. I mean, when you look at the schedule for it, They faced ACC teams, they beat their ACC teams, and yeah, it went down to like the fourth level for stuff and deciding stuff, but they won out stuff and they had the higher percentage of opponents. They had the higher winning percentage of opponents, and they did earn the spot. Truthfully, yeah, they went 7-5, but they won their conference games, and that's what's the main thing in this situation is that you win your conference games, you get into your championship game.
Okay. Yeah, they obviously did win their conference games, going 6-2. 4 other teams also went 6-2 with better pedigrees out of conference, but obviously the only thing that matters is conference play. This has got to be one of the weakest teams to ever make an ACC championship. This is dismal. That team is just bad. Their wins are bad. The only thing that looks good on their resume is they've lost to some good teams, but this is an undeserving Duke team.
And moving on to our second question, Lane Kiffin has been dominating the national headlines for weeks now about where he's going to be the head coach at. So, Cade, if you were Lane Kiffin, would you have went to LSU like he did, or would you have stayed home at Ole Miss?
Well, obviously, he's built a pretty good program at Ole Miss over the past couple of years, but this Ole Miss program, they're small. LSU's just a bigger program, more money, more resources. They're going to give him better opportunities in the transfer portal and with signing recruits. It's an obvious move. With the signing day coming up, you have to get your coach now. It's understandable why Lane Kiffin had to leave.
Richie?
Cade, I defer for what you say. If I was Kiffin, I would have stayed at Ole Miss and I would have continued working with what I had. The starters, you bring in more recruits that have interest in you as the coach. You bring that into the program, and then you go alongside with your team that's only lost one game this year and looking to go into the college football playoffs. You continue with that. You don't just destroy something you build in one day. If you spent years building this, you continue on with it. You don't just destroy it in 30 seconds.
Okay, moving on to the third question. I got 2 Ohio State boys with me, so curious to see where this is going to go. But Richie, is Ohio State going to make another run all the way to the national championship and win it?
Well, Chase, I'll say this. This is the best defense statistically since, from what I saw, the 1978 season of college football playoffs. And this defense has shown that it is the dominant force of the Ohio State team and the Buckeyes. The offense has the playmakers to continue pushing through the game. We saw it last week again in the game where even when snow conditions came in, the team was still able to push through in the second half and win the game. And they also held Michigan to not a singular touchdown that game, holding them to only 3 field goals.
I have to say that the OSU defense has been very impressive this season, one of the most impressive we've ever seen. I am slightly worried about their offense going into college football playoff with how weak their schedule was this season. I mean, there are only 2 ranked games that I truly count are Texas at the start of the year, which is questionable, and Michigan, which was played in the snow. This defense is going to be dominant, but I'm just a little bit worried when they start to get that bigger competition.
Okay. Good answers, boys. Moving on to question 4. Which conference championship will be the best game this weekend? Cade, we're going to you to start this one.
Well, I think this is honestly a pretty weak slate of conference championships. When it comes to the most important, there's only one answer to me. It's the American Athletic Championship. Absolutely great teams. Tulane and North Texas are going to be fighting for what could be the 5th and final playoff bye spot. If Virginia Duke goes the wrong way, it could be a major bye spot, so it could be a major game. Rooting for North Texas in that one, but it should be a very close-knit contest.
When you look at these games this weekend, there's one that really stands out to me, and that's the Big 12 game, BYU against Texas Tech. Both of those teams are looking to get a playoff spot, and I personally think that whoever loses this game this weekend will not be in the college football playoffs. Even though Texas Tech is ranked 5th, I think that they will fall enough to where they are out of the playoffs. So this game basically is saying winner goes on, loser goes home.
Okay, boys. And it all comes down to this. Question 5. Richie, we're going to you. It's now the second season of the 12-team college football playoff format. Should the playoffs stay at 12 teams, or should it change again?
I think it should stay at 12 teams. I do think while you always have this group of 5 that gets put in after the first 11 that gets chosen between a group of 5, I think that when you look at it, 12 is a good amount of numbers for it. 4 teams get a bye, and then you have 8 other teams facing off in the first round. I think overall it is a good median to work out together for this playoff system.
I have to absolutely disagree with you. I think the 12-team playoff is an absolute disgrace. The fact that we're allowing teams like Tulane, North Texas, JMU out of the Sun Belt, it's absolutely unbelievable. They need to downsize and go back to 8 and make sure that conference championships don't matter, because in the end of the day, they end up not mattering. We need to have the top 8 teams playing in the final games of the season.
Okay, boys. So, this 5-5, a score of 3-2. I have going to Richie winning this week's 5-5. It was great arguments. I really love the passion coming from your side, Cade. Richie, I thought some of your points were just a little bit stronger, so I got Richie for this one. That's going to do it all for the 5-5 mini segment with Richie Dininni being your winner. We're going to send it over to Logan Arblaster to close us out with the state of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Working here. My bad.
Logan Arblaster on Plead Your Case. Today is a very special combination segment between the State of the Union of the Pittsburgh Steelers, part 2 for me, as I was on this segment earlier in the year with Michael McKenzie, and also I have something to say. Another segment that's been running throughout this school year, and I have 2 very important words to say to start this off. Absolutely pathetic. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been absolutely pathetic. They are so bad right now that Mike Tomlin is getting Fire Tomlin chants in his home stadium. I don't know if I've ever seen in the history of the NFL a coach get chants at him like that in his home stadium. And they're not just booing the coach, they're also booing Renegade. This is the Steelers theme song. You want to talk about tone deaf. The Steelers have absolutely no clue what's going on, to the point that they're playing Renegade in the middle of the 4th quarter, right before the team's about to go on the field when they're down 16 points. They came out the first play of the second half with the Buffalo Bills, was a strip sack touchdown off of Aaron Rodgers. And this is in an AFC conference, by the way. It's more open than ever. If the Steelers aren't going to win it this year, when are they going to win it? So I think they picked the right year to go all in. And when I was back on this segment just a couple months ago, I was way high on how the Steelers were performing up to this point, because they had a game plan and they were looking like they were going to be one of the teams to emerge to the top of the AFC. They beat the Colts, they beat the Patriots, 2 of the best seeds so far in the conference, but they haven't been able to emerge from the middle of the pack. So with that said, there's 3 6-6 teams right now. That's the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Steelers. This week, the Pittsburgh Steelers play the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens and Steelers, Bill Hillgrove, the longtime voice, play-by-play announcer of the Steelers on the radio, he used to say that it's a game that's supposed to be played in a dark alley, in the back of a dark alley. And I agree with him. But at this point, the Ravens and the Steelers both look terrible. This is more of a battle of mediocrity than it is anything else. This episode coming out just one day after Aaron Rodgers, I like to call him Raji, one day after his birthday. Is turning 42 years old. He might be running out of steam finally. I think we saw last week he made a bunch of really bad reads, but the biggest thing going into the Steelers and Ravens matchup is the run game. One of the biggest reasons they lost the playoff game, the Steelers did, in Baltimore last year in the first round, was because they couldn't stop Derrick Henry in the run game. And last week against Buffalo, it was similar issues. You would think, if you're a Steelers fan, that whenever they drafted Derek Harmon and they addressed the defensive line and they bulked up with big physical guys on both sides of the ball, but especially on the defensive line, they got more depth in that position, that they were going to be much better off this year when it came to stopping the run. But last game, the most yards ever given up in franchise history on Acrisure Stadium's turf. They're going to have to fight for every single blade of grass this week in all 3 phases, special teams, defense, and offense, to beat the Baltimore Ravens. So that's all I have for this week's edition of the State of the Union of the Pittsburgh Steelers, as well as I have something to say. Hopefully the Steelers don't put in an absolute ridiculous performance again this week.